part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Worldwide. You're listening to the Krypton Report.
Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast, and it is Flash Week. It is our last entry of Flash Week before we see the film. So to talk about Ezra Miller and his run as the Flash and what we've got and what we can expect and kind of our build-up episode to seeing the film, I had to call in double the trouble. I got Bryan and I have James. Welcome, guys.
Oh, well, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Well,
hey James,
as
how's it going?
anyone might hear, as of this recording, I am sick. Thank you, fellow teachers, on the last week of school. Passing cold around.
F them teachers.
For real, man. But I love podcasting, and it's going to be fun. So we're going to do the best we can.
And you love us.
I do.
You love bologna Bryan and mussels marinara.
Oh, man. I could see Muscles Marinara as like James's like Flex Mentallo version. Like he flexes while holding a meatball sub.
Exactly.
He gives a whole
for me it's a
flex
it's a
and the meatball
loaf.
subs just pop out like.
We could go into a whole bunch, but that would make this podcast explicit. But here we are, boys, on the eve.
It's a
I wrote
family
this.
Family show.
'Twas the night before the Flash movie, discussing Ezra Miller's Flash, his appearances, and what we expect. So, we'll start off. We're going to take a little bit of time travel, boys. Back to the year 2014. It was on 2014 in October when Ezra was officially cast. We are still a year and months away from BVS. And we find out that Ezra is cast as the Flash. Will be appearing in BVS and then, of course, Justice League. And then he'll get his solo movie in 2018. That was the plan.
It's almost laughable these days. Although I cry myself to sleep thinking about it.
James is like, he really wanted that Seth Grahame-Smith movie. And then Bryan really wanted that Rick Famuyiwa movie. And then we really wanted John Daly. John, I cannot remember his name. I'm drawing a blank. Sorry. The action comedy duo who just recently did Dungeons and Dragons. We're gonna do it, and then nothing, and then all of a sudden we got Andrew Muschietti. So
I'm just talking about everything that came and never happened. Everything that was announced and never happened.
We can make an entire podcast about things that were announced in some form of development and never happened.
The last 10 years was a lot of hardship.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in therapy. so Bryan, tell me how Warner Brothers executives hurt you. Show me on the doll where they hurt you.
He's pointing everywhere. They're like, dang, that's harsh. Now, were either of you familiar with Ezra's work when he was cast as the Flash?
I think Fantastic Beasts did not come out. The first Fantastic Beasts did not come out when he was announced, did it?
I think the first one was out. Because I feel like I'm looking it up right now.
It was just a wallflower, personal wallflower, which I didn't watch.
You're right. The first Fantastic Beast was 2016. So
okay.
I didn't know him from...
Because I was like, who is this guy, and why is he not Grant Gustin? That was my initial reactions.
I did go watch his movie, We Need to Talk About Kevin, which was released in 2011.
Okay.
Because that was one I was trying to find. I had no interest in watching Perks of a Wallflower. And then then he appeared, like I said, in 2016 in Fantastic Beasts. And that was like, oh, okay, he can see his act because, we'll talk about it in a moment, like what he was in BVS.
Wait a second. No. We saw him in BVS's Flash before we saw him in Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot to display acting-wise. What about you, James?
Well, the only thing I had seen him in before was Perks of Being a Wallflower.
James watched
and
that
his
movie.
his performance among most of the others was actually pretty darn good. So, I mean, it's a very different character than I would be expecting from Barry. So, I mean, I was just
Mr.
just going like,
you know
what? He was like, like he put in a good performance, and that was a number of years ago. I mean, I'm sure, hopefully, that he was picked for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that you hear the actor cast, and then you try to find stuff that they're in to kind of get a sense. I remember when Cavill was cast, it was right around the time they were releasing Immortals.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was like, I went to that movie. It already looked cool, but I mainly went to see, can this guy be Superman? So, yeah. So, Ezra's first appearance was in BVS. He appears basically in 2 scenes. He appears in the footage.
Oh yeah, he does.
On the computer with Diana, where it really looks like Ezra just walked in off the street and filmed, because he has like goatee and long hair. And then he has the scene where he was in a mocap suit appearing to Bruce. Now, I had a friend at the time who had no idea that was supposed to be the Flash. He's like, "Who was that?" I'm like, "The Flash, dude." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah."
And he's not your friend anymore, is he?
No, he's not actually.
That's right.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see him. I knew he was going to be in it, but it was kind of spoiled. I think that it would be like nothing more than a cameo thing, like kind of how the end would be. And when he showed up in that from the nightmare scene, I was like, "Oh wow!" So I knew exactly it was the Flash. I was like, "Oh, that surprised me."
Well, it caught me off guard in the sense that we were getting all this merch for BVS of Aquaman, and he's in the movie the exact same amount as the Flash is. And yet they have an Aquaman figure, Aquaman pop figure, Aquaman costume, and all this, where he's no more in it than the Flash is. But,
yeah, well, at that time, that was Jason Momoa coming off of his first season of Game of Thrones. Like,
first and only?
People were freaking out. Yeah, exactly. His first and only. And people were, like, all aboard the Momoa train.
It's the Horseman.
He's going to saddle the world. So did you guys have any thoughts towards the Flash from BVS?
Yes.
Okay.
Quite a bit.
Okay.
Well, so I think Ezra getting cast as the Flash was kind of like the big wake-up call that DC is not going to do the Marvel thing. DC is not going to have their Flash on TV also be in the movies. Like, that was the big wake-up call. And the whole time we're like, well, it would make more sense to just freaking have Grant on TV and then be in the movie too. Like, at least, I mean, I was one of many that probably thought that. And then, you have Steve Amell as your Green Lantern. Like, that's what's going to make it work, have it sync together. Because up until that, we had that Marvel train setting. Are you guys getting a bit of an echo in my voice? Or maybe it's just
it's in all of our voices. It's fine. Okay,
I'm sorry. Okay. But, Marvel set that tone for the MCU, character movie, building it up, character, whatever. So when BVS was announced, I, in my head, because, I like to be the antagonist of the group, was all like, this ain't going to work. If you're going to throw if you're going to throw Batman and Superman in one movie without building up Batman, it's not going to work. And then if you're going to throw in these other characters and we don't know them, it's probably not going to work. And then, it didn't work for general audiences. It worked for us, kind of, because we're comic fans and we can think. But, I wanted to see Grant in the movie because Grant was already established for those 2 years, and those first 2 seasons of The Flash were the best seasons of The Flash, which were Chef's Kiss. So amazing. You kind of wanted Grant in there. So when Ezra is hired, I'm like, who the heck's this guy? And why do we have these 2 Flashes? And then when, you see him with the long hair. He had blue lightning in that scene, didn't he?
It's the same. Yeah, it's that same bluish white, but it's in black and white camera footage.
Yeah, it's black and white.
But that scene was good. That scene was good enough for me for a Flash cameo.
Yeah,
because he had milk in his hand, goes, stops the guy, comes back, milks, before the milk drops. That was great. That was good enough for me. The long hair, I was just kind of like, Flash with long hair. That's kind of weird.
Yeah,
but then the nightmare scene.
Facial hair and long hair. I was like, you couldn't have just grabbed the razor, dude, and been like,
Yeah, that to me that was like, okay, it's a different version of Barry, sure. But that nightmare scene got me very excited for what the future was going to hold, because if Flash is coming back to try and warn Batman of something in the future, where is this going to go? I got really excited about that. Just having that little scene, but the way it was edited was very weird.
I agree. I think it should have been the Flash showed up first. Then when he showed up is what caused Bruce to get the visions.
The placement in the movie, it's just a weird placement. And we talked about this before.
Yeah, we did.
It was just really weird. But it got me excited to see what is this Flash going to be capable of? What is Ezra going to be capable of in this Flash role? So it piqued my interest big time, but not as much as a little scene in Suicide Squad, which we're going to get there.
Yep. James, any comments from the BVS appearance of the Flash?
The security footage, right?
Mm-hmm.
The security footage was, I thought, definitely stand out. It was really cool watching him, just real quick. The milk doesn't even drop anywhere. And he walks off calmly to the front. That was an exciting reveal of the Flash. And I don't know, the long hair and stuff. It was more of Ezra's look at the time, not quite like a Barry look. I guess if you put it in, it's like maybe he is dealing with stuff, because of what happened to his parents. So he's kind of a little more emo before he got his powers. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good point. Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows? Not a big deal.
My biggest issue with Ezra Flash, okay, and this is I've complained about, his hair color. Look, Barry is always supposed to be a blonde, blue-eyed character, and we've had 3 live-action Barrys. Technically 4, I guess.
Wait, hold on.
We have
Flash
2.
90s.
We have Flash 90s.
No. 5.
6.
No. Wait. The first live-action Flash is Legends of Superhero Flash.
And then we have the JLA unaired pilot. Then you have you have Wesley Shipp. You have Grant. And then you have Ezra. And then you have other version of Ezra.
No one has blonde hair.
And nobody has blonde hair. And I'll let it slide with, Grant's got light brown hair. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna let it slide. But Ezra's got dark hair.
Amazing Flash.
I'm like, come on, man.
It's say your closest is probably Kyle Gallner as Bart Allen, and
and he's not even and he's not even Barry. He's Bart.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
So that was my issue. All right. So the next appearance we have, so that was 2016. Okay. Our next appearance is in 2017. or I'm sorry, no, that is later in 2016.
Yeah, it's 2016.
And that is Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad.
All right, we'll start with James this time with the scene. What were your thoughts, James?
I think the scene's great. Shot by Zack Snyder because they were shooting Justice League. So it was kind of an add-in there. But it's a great shot. I love the way it is. You got Boomerang and him, taking out the people he's working with, so that way he walks away with all the loot. And it definitely, I think it shows that Barry has a confidence when he comes in, when he steps in. And he just makes his remark and then he takes down Boomerang and that's it. I think it certainly it set a tone that didn't keep when it came to the theatrical.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Iterations. So, it just. I loved it. I loved the scene. I loved the inclusion of him, just to be like, well, that's how Boomerang got taken down by the Flash. He's one of his rogues. Why not?
All right, Brian, your thoughts on the Suicide Squad scene?
I absolutely love that scene. That probably got me the most excited for Flash, even more than the nightmare scene with the time travel and stuff. The nightmare scene got me intrigued of, where the future is Flash going to go Justice League wise. But the Suicide Squad scene, him taking down Boomerang is like, okay, all right, we're 2 years away from this Flash movie and he's facing Boomerang. We're going to see rogues. We're going to get Boomerang. We're going to get Captain Cold, Heat Wave, Weather Wizard, whatever we're going to get. Like, we're getting full-on Flash. We're getting rogues. Like, I was excited. You saw the Flash, kind of have that little bit of quippiness that, Wally West is more known for than Barry, but, whatever. I mean, that got me pumped because it was a funny scene. It showed just enough to give you just a little taste of, what humor and coolness the Flash movie was going to have in 2 years. And it wasn't expected. It wasn't expected scene. It was just kind of added in there as like a little, little teaser trailer, if you will.
I mean, it was the perfect cameo tease of the character to just give enough hint at him to build up, like you said, for the next film.
But the thing about that scene is how everything's like how the timeline goes afterwards. It's the most out of place scene because there's no mention of Flash facing Boomerang, in Justice League or Justice League. He has the suit in Justice League, and, made it himself, stuff like that. Like, there's no, like, in the Suicide Squad clip, he seems to have somewhat understanding of his powers, somewhat. Like, even in that BVS scene, he seems to have somewhat understanding of how quick he can go in so little time, like, without phasing through things and stuff. But when you see Justice League,
we'll get there. We'll get there.
He has, yeah. You know what I'm getting at here. It just seems like, yeah.
So, like I said, I think it's a great intro, just enough to get you hyped, and you know that the Justice League is coming. Now, 2017, 1 year later, we're getting, as we call, Justice League. And I'll go first on this one.
Studio.
Christ almighty.
This movie proves that Barry is completely worthless in this movie. I've watched both cuts enough that I can tell you Barry trips and falls for no reason in this movie.
On to Wonder Woman. And it's very awkward.
They make him more goofy, stupid. Pet Cemetery. and he does nothing in the final battle. You know, he pushes the truck with the family and does the Dostoevsky, you know, and then we get, you know, in this we see Barry. The only good scenes are the same scenes that repeat in Zack Snyder's, and we'll get there. But I thought Ezra, I'm like, man, I've seen you act, and like we see glimpses of your greatness, but then this movie completely undersells him as a valuable character or anything. And you know, we have that scene at the end of the film where he's chasing Superman, and and Joss is an idiot because he's trying to show an ode to the great Superman versus Flash race, but it's always on foot. It's never Superman flying. But he decided to make Superman fly. What a douche. But I do want to say, like, I watched an interview with Ezra where he was talking about he was studying this martial artist wushu monk guy, and he was watching the way he moves. And that's why he runs and moves the way he does. This man is recorded as like the fastest man on earth as far as his motions and movements. And Ezra wanted to copy some of his moves in his Flash. That's why we have the scene where like he's crouched down and he brings his hand down at the Superman memorial and he takes off running. So that really helps explain some of the movements and the way that he runs compared to how we're used to seeing, you know, the Flash depicted when he runs. But I feel like Justice League was definitely made him a joke of a character. Now, I'll let James go next because then I know Brian's got a bunch to complain about. James.
I mean, I agree entirely about making him a joke of the character. You know, they set up the tone before that he has taken down criminals and stuff. And, you know, I mean, parademons, it's on a whole nother level, but they made him seem cowardly, you know? He wasn't like this intelligent character. I mean, as we can tell, they reshot almost all of the dialogue to shift the narrative to something different. So just to have him just make quips, you know, it's like it's all they could fit for him with the time limit as well. It's just I was sad and disappointed that was the Barry that we were getting. I know that the moment where Bruce is doing the mentorship in the tunnel fight scene, I know everybody enjoys that, and yeah, it's a well done moment, and it's well acted by the characters. But it's really the only thing you kind of get in there.
Yeah. All right, Brian, your turn. Let them have it.
It's bullshit.
Thanks, Brian.
It just oh, that's what I'm here for, buddy. You know, he was kind of, you know, he's built up in BVS as, you know, he's a time traveler. He's going to be a big part of what's to come. You know, to go back and warn Batman of what's supposed to happen. But once this Justice League happens, that nightmare scene is completely thrown out the window. So now we have this big giant plot hole that we're dealing with, because in Justice League, it's not even mentioned. Like, there's no talk like, hey, I saw you, you know, about a year ago, and you came and saw me in the future. Like, there's no talk about, there's nothing, it doesn't mean anything, you know. So huge plot hole there, screws up everything that they're trying to do. Joss Whedon, you bastard. Okay. Then he's so Wally-ish. And like,
yeah, they make him an amalgam.
Yeah, and Josh like turned the dial up on Wally things through the roof. So like, you know, Flash falling on Wonder Woman and having that scene, that would have been a Wally scene. It would have been like in the comics, Wally would have, you know, hit on her a little bit because he has, especially Bart. Bart impulse. Yeah, there's a little bit of impulse in that too. In that in that. But the biggest heartbreaking thing is that he has no purpose. You take Flash out of that movie, and nothing changes. Nothing really does anything other than Batman has somebody to talk to for a second.
Yeah,
like he has nothing to the plate.
He adds nothing, and that's a problem.
Huge problem. And then you immediately set the tone. Because his movie, like when Justice League came out, was that Flash movie already delayed? Or they still said it was coming out in a couple months?
Well, it was in that weird time where they were shifting some stuff because they hadn't started shooting it yet. They were change of directors. I mean, I think at this time,
at this point, it was right after the AT&T merger.
So I think it was
already bought and going through, and that's why they pushed Justice League out the way they did. Because coming up, they had a new regime starting at the beginning of the new year.
And I think this is where we got the Rick Famuyiwa stuff. Was about this time. I think
that's when he came in. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to think when the Flash movie was first delayed.
I think it was like right in here because Sam Graham-Smith was supposed to direct. That was going to be horrible, but he disappeared. Then Rick Famuyiwa, because wasn't it at Comic-Con that year when they did the whole stand-up and it was like Ben Affleck, Rick Famuyiwa, and David Ayer were all standing up to be like the directors of DC properties. But we're going to skip now we're going to go from 2017. We're going to go 3 years in the future. At this point, we're still waiting for more confirmation about what's happening with the Flash movie. We'd already gone through the other directors, and I don't even remember when Miss Andrew was, and I think he was announced about this time. I think he was getting ready to work on it because this is when Crisis Episode 5 had the crossover and Ezra appeared in the Speed Force alongside Grant Gustin.
The craziest moment of that whole entire crossover.
I agree.
No one saw that coming.
I totally agree because everybody else made sense of like being from TV shows and stuff. But all of a sudden to have this scene with the Flash and the Flash.
You were like, oh my gosh.
I was probably the one part I freaked out over the most. What about you, James? I'll let you go first and talk about it.
Well, I mean, that was the episode it came back, right?
Yeah, it was the first, it was part 5 out of 6.
Yeah.
And it was, or no, what was it, part 4 out of 5? Damn it.
I mean, it was the
last
most,
one.
Yeah, it wasn't obviously it wasn't the best episode. We all know which one that one was, but it was one of the best points of the entire event.
Yes.
And then went downhill. It was awesome to see him. It was awesome to see him in the multiverse, obviously talking with Barry. Barry, I'm Barry. I'm the Flash. Oh, like he hadn't been calling himself that yet.
Right.
And then his line of Victor's gonna freak, or I told Victor this was possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, that was just the implications. It was so exciting at the time.
It is.
It's a great moment in DC.
Yeah, it was. It was the first time we saw some sort of synergy between the films and the television, and really helped bring in the two universes that were going on. And that's when I kind of thought that they were going to like make it a big announcement about the Flash film, because they were bringing attention to the character again through this event. And like you said, this is where this was like, the idea that the Flash it shows us that he's experimenting with his powers. And I consider this canon. And that's why, like Bryan said earlier, like I have my whole theory, and I've gone over it multiple times, about, Crisis affecting the film universe. And that's why when Aquaman comes out, and Birds of Prey, and The Suicide Squad, and Wonder Woman 1984, and Shazam's, like, they're connected, but they don't feel exactly as strongly to the earlier films because we had the Crisis event,
Mm-hmm.
and this is like the part of the new multiverse that we're exploring now. So Bryan, thoughts on this in the Grant appearing in Crisis, or not? Ezra appearing with Grant in Crisis.
Man, that was the craziest moment. Like the whole time I'm watching Crisis, I'm like, this should be a whole reboot of everything. This should kind of tie it all together. Like we're kind of not getting this. We're getting this whole story of the avatars or whatever they called them. That was all weird. but then that moment,
Paragons.
Yeah, parallelograms. So the parallelogram of hope, whatever. Just seeing that moment was just a holy crap moment. Just seeing Ezra there and Grant interact, and it made me wonder. Okay, so if Grant knows that Barry exists, and in this moment, this is where Ezra gets the name Flash. Like to call himself that, because in Zack Snyder's Justice League, I don't think he called himself Flash.
He doesn't.
Like,
no.
Nope.
Yeah. Like there was no. But in Justice League, does he call himself Flash?
No.
Okay, but this is where he gets to the name, like of what he's going to be. So that was a good hint there. And it was just a fun interaction, like them just being so surprised. I mean, I still feel like Ezra acts a little bit more impulse than, like, I don't even want to say Wally. I want to say more impulse than Barry. But it was just a great interaction. It got me excited for the future. Because it made me wonder, is Grant going to be in the Flash movie?
Hold that thought.
Oh, that's why I left it that way.
I know. All right, so then we jump to 2021, a year later, and we have the true sequel to BVS, Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'll let James start this one. Go for it, James.
Well, his role is significantly expanded. We get to see how the world reacts to him in such a physical way, which I thought was amazing. I think Ezra's performance in this movie is leaps and bounds above the quips and the cowardly take that we got. Much more sure of himself, I mean, he goes down a couple of times.
But those couple of times,
tickling you over there,
those couple of times make sense in those scenes if you watch what he's doing. Like he's pushing him. In the other one, he's just tripping. He's bumbling. Yeah, in this, if you watch, like, you really see when he gets hurt. Like it makes more sense when he gets hurt and he gets shot in the leg. You see him trip because he's pushing himself, going faster. So they.
I like the way, because of the way the world reacts to him around it. He has taken the approach to calm himself with his Tai Chi and stuff, trying to be in the moment and control his body.
Which is back to him mimicking that guy I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. His movements, and then what he does in the movie. I mean, so much more. I mean, he saves the hero. He saves the Earth. He saves the Justice League.
In Justice League, he goes from being the most worthless character ever,
a Russian Uber,
to in Zack Snyder's Justice League being the savior of the entire day. And they set it up beautifully with, we see him get injured in the leg and how he kind of has to walk it off. And then we see him talk about his power. We see him manipulate time a little bit when he sparks the cube. And then we see him get shot really bad and how he focuses and heals and then pushes himself, and time travels and saves the world. Yeah. Bryan, your thoughts on Zack Snyder's Justice League? Barry.
On the Flash in Zack Snyder's
Yeah,
Justice.
yeah, on just Barry the Flash.
You know what? Okay.
I was going to say, we can't get you started down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, we still got more material to cover on this episode.
I would like to publicly apologize for my ranting and adding things to the podcast that don't have anything to do with what we're really talking about. Kind of like what I'm saying right now. I really apologize. I mean, you can almost put like Zack Snyder's Justice League as really the Flash movie that we were supposed to get, kind of. He has so much time to shine. You know, him racing after Superman is resurrected, and getting that weird look like, holy crap, he can see me move this fast. Great Flash moment. My favorite Flash moment, and I mean, there's so many. Him when they decide to resurrect Superman, and he's running, and then he misses touching the water at the exact second, and then he reverses time, and then he realizes that he can do that, and then hitting it that precise second was just an awesome, awesome Flash scene. I freaking love the Flash.
Yeah, I love how he's like, I can, like, if I approach the speed of light, I can. Weird things happen with time. Yeah,
I mean, even on a character note, for Barry Allen, when him and Victor are digging up Clark's grave, and he says, we could do this like in a nanosecond, and Victor's like, it wouldn't feel right, and he's like, yeah, you're right. Like,
great
they take their time doing it. Yeah. And I'll save this comment for when we get in a minute, but yeah. Sure. They just make him a great character. We see his intelligence, we see him smart, but we also see him having fun and having that youthful, uplifting spirit too. But we're not talking about Brunch or Pet Cemetery. We're not just tripping over everything.
He's not a character. He's a character. He's not just a pop culture vomit.
Ooh, yeah. Good call.
There you go. Now, my wife, not a big comic book person. She enjoyed the Shazam movie, the first one. She felt it had a lot of heart. She really liked it. And she likes Spider-Man. But when I was watching Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I was going back and watching the introduction of the Flash with the Iris scene and the dogs, my wife's like, now that's a good introduction for the Flash right there, with the breaking of the glass and just moving things around, making sure you get a hot dog for later. Yeah. That Zach really knew. Yeah, Zach really knew what to do with the Flash. And that gets me really excited for things. And just seeing Zack Snyder's Justice League made me see that, Ezra could do this character. Yeah. Before then, I was just like, I don't know, because Grant's the only thing good about that Flash show, But that gave me hope for what Ezra can do. And he really does take that Flash character seriously. In interviews and recent interviews that we just share with each other, he really does care about that role. He might make some other poor decisions in his life that aren't the best, and he's getting help, so good for him. But when it comes to this Flash character, he cares about the physics. He cares about learning how to do things. Studying that man in martial arts. He really cares about what he's doing, and I respect that as him as an actor. And end scene.
Awesome. So we're gonna jump now, and like you said, Iris West, that small introduction sets up two characters perfectly to carry over into their own film. So we're gonna jump now 1 year. He makes a cameo appearance in Peacemaker in 2022. I'll let Bryan go first on this one.
Oh, in Peacemaker?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember that dang scene. It was at the very end, right?
Yeah.
And then you saw Aquaman. You kind of thought you saw Wonder Woman. Superman's somewhat floating in the sky, right?
You have Superman and Wonder Woman shadowed, but then you see Ezra and Jason actually as their characters.
I don't remember what they say to each other. I apologize.
All right, James, you go.
Well, so Peacemaker tells them that they're late, and tells Aquaman to go back to his fishes. The running joke.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I could only
he says, "I'm
that.
getting sick of that joke," and Barry's like, "It's not a joke." Which I don't know. What do you consider Mira?
She's Atlantean, But I look at that scene like it was.
Mira's not Atlantean.
She's not
Zebel.
Atlantean. technically.
Okay, maybe
they all
in
refer
that
to
world, but whatever.
They all kind of refer to themselves as part of being Atlantis. But
Mira's from the Bermuda Triangle.
That I would have liked a better cameo. But I looked at that as like two friends, much like the three of us talking how sometimes we make jokes towards each other and say stupid stuff like we did before we got on mic,
Yeah.
So that's kind of, but it was nice that they popped up because, like, once again, just trying to keep him out there.
Yeah.
In the
that
public
is
eye.
the feeling I got from that scene is them being friends and giving each other crap.
Because if you look at it, okay, you have Ezra appearing in 2020, 2021, 2022, and here we are in 2023 with the film. So little bits here and there. I wouldn't count Zack Snyder's a little, but you know what I'm saying. Like something to kind of keep that character out there. So, all right. Did either of you read the Flash film prequel comic?
I did.
We'll just talk about in general. I didn't like the art. I felt like they gave it to like their D-lister like artist, like, hey, you just draw this.
The art in book 2 was good.
I have that in my note. The art is better. I have the art as a B+ in book 2, as a C or a D in book 1, and as a C in book 3. And the only thing I liked in issue 3 was that he was eating pizza. The only thing I feel like that really comes off.
He fights the top.
Yeah, like they gave him Girder. We saw Patty,
Tar Pit, and Top.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, but I feel like other than like he's talking to Batman and everything, like
no, there's only one important thing that happens in all three of these issues. Only one.
He learns to phase.
Bring it on, Brian.
The flash ring came from Batman.
Yep, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Which we all theorize in anyways, but yeah. And I just feel like I like comic movie book tie-ins when they feel like they add to the story. But I feel like this really didn't do anything for the story.
Didn't do a damn thing.
I don't necessarily think that it did anything for the story. I don't feel like anything from this movie or from these books is going to have any impact on the movie, except for obviously him getting the ring. I don't feel like anything is going to have an impact on it, but I do like the idea of Ezra's Flash getting more story out, beyond what we see in the screen, especially just for the fact that it's been changed. Things have been changed so much.
It's true.
And the movie's only finally coming out within the month.
This book came out last year because it was supposed to be building up to the original release date, or the last release date before they pushed it to where it is now, and it was supposed to come out last year in November. So I get what you're saying there. All right, my last thing here for the Flash part is anything from the trailer that pops out, or any thoughts that you have of what you want to see in this movie? We'll let James go first.
So from the marketing, from all the toys and things like that, I'm mostly curious about Dark Flash and what we're gonna see with that. I'm trying not to really think too much on things that I've kind of heard or came across because of the screening. I haven't gotten any spoilers per se, but I've heard rumors of nothing specific, just like the timing of like what happens. Like it's not like Michael Keaton comes in early in the movie, like, and he's there for the entire thing or something. Just for little bits, like something obscure like that. And I just try not to think on it.
Yeah. My thought is we've had all 3 trailers. There's not been a frame of Dark Flash.
Nope.
I don't want it to be Barry 2 because I did a whole video with Solomon kind of trying to figure out, is this movie time travel or is it time travel and Earth hopping? Because something feels awkward either way.
Yeah, let me put it out there with what if it is Barry 2, because the idea of Barry changing things back means that his mother's going to die, and he would do that, be Dark Flash or whatever, to stop that from happening.
Well, if it is, it kind of like is weird because that's still him. It's just because that Barry's his younger self, is what we heard in the trailer. So in essence, he makes himself the Flash sooner, and himself is, the Dark Flash. And if it is, that's make it work, but it can't stay because technically Thawne is still out there because somebody had to kill his mom in the first place. So I don't know. Like, I'm just very curious about how like this Dark Flash is going to work. If it's even going to be a big thing, or if it's going to be something that's more of a tease for a future film. But
if it's time travel, if it, I don't. The only thing that makes sense to me when it comes to the thing of 2 Barrys is because it looks like he's supposed to be returning at the same time as he is, but his mother's alive. So it just makes sense that Barry's from another universe. But also, we've got the time travel stuff. So,
like I said, go back and listen to the dialogue in the trailer. And it's confusing because they use, this is the only world where my mom lives. This is, I traveled in time.
Yeah, but it's cut
and
and edited to...
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, it gets muddy. So that's what I'm curious about, because the other thing that I'm curious about is in the scene where we see him sitting at the dinner table and we see the other Barry coming in. He runs out there and his lightning is the blue-white lightning, but we also see him interacting in that timeline with his yellow lightning. So how does that work? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of interesting things that I have like this that I really can't wait for the film to explain. And then my last thing is details to figure out, is this is a sequel to, is it kind of a wink wink? It can be either Justice League, because technically it should be more connected to the Snyder version because he's already traveled in time, so he knows he can do it, compared to what we happened in Justice League. So I'm looking for little details.
If it is Justice League Barry Allen, it makes complete sense to me that he would be a moron and just change things because he figured out he could.
So I don't know, Bryan. What's your
stupid
thoughts?
Mistake early?
I'm just trying to keep track of all my thoughts because what you said made me think more. Okay, this is what I really think as of this moment. I think that scene in Crisis when he meets Grant, that makes him realize that there are different worlds out there. I think it's going to tie into that. And then he starts to think, okay, my mom's gone. What can I fix? Like he knows there's different worlds out there. So I think it's a little bit of time travel and multiverse. So I think he goes back in time to when there was a multiverse. So at that moment, there is no multiverse. But he goes back in time to when there was a multiverse in that moment with Grant, in which he finds a world where his mom existed. But I think what's going to happen, I'm trying not to confuse you guys and myself as I'm explaining this, but there is that scene where the other Barry shows up, and that's his world. And that Barry is wearing a yellow hoodie. I think we cannot forget that. He's wearing a yellow hoodie. And is lighting. And I think that in the process of meeting that other Barry, he creates the second Flash. He creates a second Flash. But I think there's going to be a part in there where, in order to fix everything, one of the Barrys, probably our Barry, is actually going to be the one that's going to have to kill the mom. I don't think there's Thawne in this. I think that there might be a third Barry that is like, you're screwing up everything. You have to kill your mom. I think it's going to be something like that. I think that one of the Barrys, maybe the third one we don't know yet. Or, well, no, because in that little trailer, you saw that little dark thing on the shoulder that was cut out later. One of these Barrys is going to probably kill the mom. I think it's going to be something like that. One of those Barrys is definitely going to be your reverse / Dark Flash. No doubt in my mind. But in an effort to save his mom, he's going to create this other Barry, I believe. And I'm also very curious about Kara, Supergirl. I'm really curious about that because when you saw Henry Cavill as Superman, he didn't know how to use his powers very well. Like, he was learning that. He was still becoming Superman. Kara, it appears that they're doing Project Superman stuff where she's locked away. But once she kind of gets out, she kind of knows what's going on. She knows what she's doing. So I'm very intrigued. I
was going to say with her, it's kind of like how Zod learned how to master his powers quickly once he got out there. Because, usually Kara probably hasn't been, she's been on Earth, but she probably didn't arrive as a baby. So that's kind of my head thing.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, and the thing I'm also very intrigued about, kind of what you just mentioned. Is this going to be Justice League canon, or is this going to be Snyder Cut canon?
We'll just have to look for the clues,
that's
man.
What I'm really, yeah.
Just have to look for the clues, and one thing that we lost with this film because of scheduling and stuff is, I'm really bummed. Like, Ron Livingston is a good actor, but man, those scenes with Billy Crudup and Ezra are really good as father and son. And the fact that, like, we don't have Billy Crudup returning really, like, just kind of is upsetting, because I feel like that's something that we lose that really helps connect Ezra, his Flash story, to Justice League.
Yeah.
But that is our thoughts here on Ezra as the Flash. And now it's time for a little bat discussion.
Look up in the sky.
We just want to say, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network. We're going to press pause and hear a few words from our other podcasts on Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us and then listen in.
So I'm calling this little segment called The Swan Song of Two Batmans. I don't know if it's Batmans or Batmins, but we have Ben Affleck returning in the film as Batman, and we have Michael Keaton. So we're just going to have a kind of a quick, light discussion about this, but Ben Affleck appears in Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and now The Flash. So starting with James, what do you think is his legacy, your favorite suit, your feeling of the character, and what do you think will happen to him in this film?
This is Ben Affleck.
Yes.
Okay. I mean my favorite suit of his is the 2016 BVS suit. It looks great. The colors. I'm fine. I'm a fan of the wide bat. It kind of just makes him look like bigger. You know what I mean? I really do love the Justice League armored suit that he wears going into battle against Steppenwolf and the Parademons. This scene, his performance in The Flash, it's just, I'm looking forward to it. The sequences we've seen in the trailer, it's going to be comparable. Like, it looks crazy, looks massive.
Do you think he'll die?
Do I think he'll die? I don't think he'll die like in an action sequence per se. Like I don't think he'll die, and that's going to be like Barry's like, all right, well, I got to go back in time now because I got to change all these things. I don't think he'll die. I think that if things are reset, that maybe when he goes to look for Bruce, or if he does, it's not going to be the same one.
Okay.
Kind of like when he goes to look for Bruce, I'm assuming in Flashpoint, and he finds a different Batman waiting for him.
Okay. All right, Bryan, your thoughts on Ben Affleck, his character, your favorite suit, your hope for the character in the film. Will he die? Go.
I really love Ben as Batman. I feel completely cheated that we didn't get more. The fact that he never got his movie with Deathstroke truly breaks my heart. Ben looked like Bruce. Ben looked like Batman. That scene where he's looking at the suit in that chamber was just, oh man, it was just so good. Just the way he trained in Batman versus Superman, those scenes, like that felt like Batman, man. That felt like the Batman we should have always had. Like a more intense Keaton, you know. I my favorite suit is the Batman versus Superman suit. I did like the black and gray. Yeah, I mean, I'm more partial to blue and gray, but we've never really seen it in live action until the Splash movie. It just looked great. The shadowing, just how he hid in the shadows. I can go on and on, but he just looks so good. He looked like how Batman should to me, and that's why I loved it. And I was sold on Ben as Batman, where where you see Bruce run towards the danger. That was Batman. That's Batman pulling through and through. It's always going to be a sore spot for me because we didn't get more of him. I'm really interested to see this blue and gray suit because to me, Batman should be in blue and gray. But we'll see how it goes.
I don't think it's going to be as much of a blue and gray as a very light black, because some of the photos look more blue, some look black, but I also have a weird theory about that too. So I'm going to just kind of wait and see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how the suit's going to look because the scenes you do see, it goes so quick. Like I can't get a really good look at it. I don't think he's going to die. I think he's not going to be in the movie very long. Only because I think that the Zod thing is going to happen. I think that whatever Ben Affleck Batman's going to help with, I think that those scenes actually might be a little bit later. We don't see that Ben Affleck's Batman interact with Zod. We see him drop and we see him on the cycle, but we don't see anything that looks like Zod stuff. Unless I'm not remembering things right.
No, you remember. My thought process is like the Ben Affleck stuff's going to come at the beginning of the movie, and then he's going to go and change time. That's going to kick off Act 2, and then the end of Act 2 is going to be the big Act 2 battle is the breakout of Supergirl, and then of course the Act 3 I think is going to be the Zod battle, and then the Dark Flash battle. I don't know. Like
I think Affleck in the blue suit, I think that's your third act. I think that's your after Barry's changed things. That's what I think.
I think that's why some of the images look blue and some look black, because we're going to see him as black. But then at some point when Barry comes back, it's going to be like the same scene we saw, but his costume's going to be blue. It's going to be like this little wink.
And I also,
last thought. Go, Brian.
Okay, I think that Keaton is going to more play your role of the Thomas Wayne role, the Thomas Wayne role in Flashpoint. I think Keaton's going to find out about Affleck's Batman, because keep in mind Ben Affleck's Batman is going to be in Aquaman 2, so that goes in my head.
Maybe we don't know that. Honestly, that was rumored and shot early. Before the DC takeover or the change with James Gunn. Aquaman's date was then pushed back. So for all we know, they could have edited that out because that movie's still being in post. So I'm counting this because this was intended to be Ben Affleck's swan song. This was his ending and him saying goodbye to the character. And then he did the cameo as a favor for Aquaman. But things keep changing. So I'm not even holding out my thought on that.
Well, just wrap it really fast. I think Keaton is going to meet Ben Affleck's Batman, or he's going to write him a letter to give to Barry, and then Ben Affleck's Batman is going to retire based on that letter and what he knows of how the other Batman turned out, being old and still being Batman. That's what I think. The
end. Okay, excuse me. Next is Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton appearing as Batman in Batman 89. Batman Returns, The Flash, the never-to-be-released Batgirl movie, which was supposed to probably tie into The Flash because it was the same costume, referenced in Crisis, and of course they did the 89 comics recently, which would be kind of a cool if there was something in the film that kind of winks at those. But what do you think his legacy is? What's your favorite suit? And what's your hope for the character in the film, James?
Well, my favorite suit is the 89, but I prefer the yellow oval of Returns. I mean, he's like the first. I think his legacy is like taking Batman seriously on film. You know what I mean? Like he's the first one to. He's the first one to play that version, to play a serious, to be like this serious take on a superhero. At least the biggest one to go mainstream, like when it did.
Yeah.
That's definitely the legacy that Keaton has. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in this movie. I do think he is too old to like continue on as the character.
Agreed.
I'm really excited to see him back, and I mean some of the action sequences they've done with him in that we've seen in the trailers look pretty gnarly, and it's interesting to think that we've got a 70-year-old Batman pulling off the stuff he's doing.
Well, I mean, come on, it's a stunt double in this suit. We know this. Come on.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, but the idea is it's the character.
Yeah,
It's the idea of the character. We're not talking about how the sausage is made. Like this is the sausage we're seeing.
How is
it's a 70-year? It's a 70-year-old Batman doing these things that
he's got the enhanced suit like in Batman Beyond. It's gonna give him a boost.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, my last question to you guys, and I'll let James go first. What do you think the post-credit scene is? Because what we know from the screeners is they have not seen the post-credit scene. That has not been released in the screeners. So what do you think the post-credit scene is?
I heard it didn't even have credits.
It didn't have credits. So, James, what do you think?
Post-credit scene. I don't know. It's hard to think that they'll... I think it'd either be something leading into Blue Beetle or Aquaman. But then again, it could be something obscure leading to something sooner. Like, I don't think they'll do an animated post-credit sequence, but maybe a Waller thing leading towards the Waller series. It's just tough to think of how it would. Because at this time we know that they're going to work on that kind of that synergy of the series and TVs and movies. So it could really lead into anything. I think something more close would be a better bet. Expanding the DC universe instead of planting an idea of a Flash sequel.
Okay. Bryan, what are your thoughts on what you think the post-credit scene might be?
On the Michael Keaton legacy.
I thought you... My bad.
No, I think that if they're going to keep Michael Keaton, if he is going to stay, because he's expressed interest, I think the wise bet would be to do a Batman Beyond thing. To go that route. And his own universe. Michael's great. I think I'm with James that he took the role seriously. A lot of people see Michael Keaton as the definitive Batman. I think the Batman.
I think this film features both definitive Batman, but whatever. Keep going.
Amen, buddy. Amen. Hold on, the Batman Returns suit I've always really loved. I think it's like Batman 89, they were kind of just trying to figure it out, like what could work. Some scenes, like when he's swooping down, he looks awesome. But then when you see the close up in the face, it looks very off. It looks like kind of bigger on his face. It doesn't work. Batman Returns, I feel like they kind of got it, shaped his face. I like the silver hue. It looks awesome. I think that you have to lead towards the new Batman, unfortunately. And I think that if you're going to keep Michael, you have to do a Batman Beyond thing, which would be awesome. Live action Batman would be great. Now, what I think the post-credit scene will be, I think there will probably be two. I think that one will probably be something tied into expanding probably the Flash family, or like a little wink to Grant Gustin of other Flashes. It's going to involve other speedsters. That's what I feel. It's going to be something like that. And then I think that if we only get one post-credit scene, it's going to be a hint at Green Lantern.
Oh, that's
what I think.
So my thought on the post-credit scene is either A, it's going to be a tease at maybe the new Batman for what would be Batman Brave and the Bold. If they go that route with trying to keep Ezra. 2, something with Supergirl. maybe showing her future or what she's going to do if they're going to keep her for the Supergirl film. Or the third is Thawne, like a definitive like evil speedster thing.
Okay, yeah.
That's kind of where my head is with what the post credit scene may or may not be. So I don't know. I'm with you guys. Like it could be something just tacked on from Aquaman. Maybe it's the Ben Affleck scene from Aquaman. They're just like, I just throw it at the post credit scene of Flash and get it over with, and then we don't have to have it in the movie. I don't know. I'm curious to see what will happen because Gunn's been very quiet as far as what else he's keeping moving forward, and I think they're really waiting to see how well this movie does before they decide. To all the listeners, as you're listening to this episode, when this episode drops, it'll drop the night before Friday when the film was released. Bryan and I are going with the families at 3 p.m. on Thursday. James, have you procured your tickets yet?
I have not, but yeah.
So James will be seeing it sometime.
I don't have a set time, but I am not waiting. And I'm not waiting around to see it. I'm seeing it opening weekend.
Right.
If not opening day, it will be that weekend, Saturday
James just
afternoon or sun. Yeah, I can't make it to work today. Yep.
Do you know that there's a thing I was reading, was a report that Revenge of the Sith actually caused economical issues because so many people called off work to go see Revenge of the Sith?
That's ridiculous. I mean, I know
awesome.
It was COVID times, but I put in PTO for Zack Snyder's Justice League. I took day off.
But even
I put
then,
in PTO for that.
But even then, that's considered like an economic issue because technically they would need you there. Because, so I just think it's fascinating. But, all right. So we're going to wrap this up. It's time, to enjoy The Flash. And we'll be back with our full breakdown movie review. And we'll really dive into what we thought, theories, enjoyments, predictions. So remember.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope.
Remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/Krypton Report. You find all of our reports.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.